All right, let's get right into it. We're going to talk about a tension that, if you're a founder or a revenue leader, you probably feel in your bones. It's this gap between the promise of technology and the often frustrating reality. We call it the leverage paradox, and it really explains why the very tools meant to help you scale so often cause you to stall out and and this gets right to the heart of the whole thing. The decision to buy a new tool, it's rarely a rational strategic choice made from a position of strength. It's a reaction, right? It's a move you make when the numbers aren't where you need them to be and the pressure is just mounting from every single direction. And that one single difference, acting out of pressure instead of for leverage, it really does explain everything. It is the absolute key to understanding why so many promising, expensive tools end up as these time-consuming disappointments that at the end of the day just don't move the needle. So, you have to understand that instinct to go grab a new tool isn't really a strategic one. It's much more psychological. It's all rooted in this deep need we have to respond to pressure with some kind of visible action. Let's break down what that cycle of motion actually looks like. Here's the trap that so many of us fall into. First, revenue starts to slow down, or maybe it stalls completely. The pressure cooker gets turned way up. Second, a shiny new tool, an outbound platform, an ABM system. It promises a flurry of new activity. It offers motion. And third, all that motion, the setup, the demos, the onboarding, it feels like you're making progress. It feels like you're finally doing something to fix the problem. But here's the brutal truth. If your underlying revenue system, your foundation, is shaky, all that tool is going to do is help you run in the wrong direction faster. It doesn't fix the instability. Not at all. It just amplifies the consequences. See, motion is not the same thing as progress. And when you confuse the two, it just makes the eventual failure that much louder, way more expensive, and a lot more public.
And that brings us to maybe the most crucial point of this entire explainer. We have to fundamentally reframe what we expect these tools to do for us. They are not magic wands. They are amplifiers. That's it.
So, take outbound tools, for instance. The promise is that they'll just go out into the world and create new demand for you. But what's really happening? Well, they're amplifying your definition of demand. If your idea about who to target is brilliant, that tool will scale your brilliance. But if your hypothesis is flawed, the tool will just help you burn through the wrong market at a really alarming speed. It's the exact same story with ABM systems. The promise is we'll create focus for your team. But an ABM tool can't actually tell you which accounts are your priority. It just executes on the definition of priority that you feed into it. So if your teams are misaligned on what a priority account even is, the tool will just amplify that chaos everywhere. And let's look at RevUp's tools. They promise to create alignment between marketing, sales, and success. But the reality? They just enforce whatever alignment is already there. So if that alignment is coherent and powerful, great. But if it's fragmented and contradictory, the tool's just going to codify that chaos and make it rigid. It just makes your current system more of what it already is. So you might be thinking, what's the real harm? If the tool doesn't work, we just cancel the subscription, right? Well, unfortunately, the cost is much higher, and it's a lot more insidious than just a monthly fee. We need to talk about a concept called revenue debt. When you're signing that contract, it feels like a pretty low-risk decision. It's just software. If it doesn't pan out, you can always back out. It feels totally reversible. They aren't. Not really. And definitely not in the ways that actually matter. Because as soon as you implement a tool, your team's behaviors and their workflows, they start to crystallize around it. People get trained on it, new processes are built, data gets locked inside it. Trying to unwind all of that, it's not just a technical problem. It becomes a massive drain on your time, your money, and frankly, the political capital inside your own organization. And that's what we call revenue debt. It's this invisible, compounding cost you pay for building your go-to-market on a foundation that just wasn't ready. The tool didn't cause the instability, but it locked it in place and made it exponentially harder and more expensive to fix down the line. So if we know that pressure is the absolute wrong reason to adopt a tool, what's the right one? Well, the answer is all about establishing something we call structural readiness. These are the conditions that have to exist before any piece of technology can give you real leverage. Now, structural readiness isn't some checklist you can just tick off. It's a state of organizational clarity. It's when your definition of demand is completely unambiguous. It's when the places where key decisions get made, we call them decision surfaces, like your weekly pipeline review, are explicit and everyone understands them. It's when your team openly owns its trade-offs. And crucially, it's when everybody knows what the illegal moves are, the types of customers you will not pursue or the discounts you will not offer, no matter how much pressure you're under. The core principle here is this. Tools are powerful when their job is to enforce a clarity that your organization has already fought for and achieved. They fail every time when they're asked to produce that clarity out of chaos. Until your system is clear, a tool will only accelerate the confusion. And all of this leads us to a new and, frankly, much safer way to think about how we scale our revenue engine and the role that technology should play in it. What's really fascinating about this is how we diagnose the problem after the fact. The common reaction is to say the tool failed us. But the much more accurate and honestly more empowering diagnosis is our system wasn't ready for the tool. When you shift that perspective, you move the focus from the vendor to your own internal readiness. And that's the only thing you can actually control. Which, of course, brings us to the million-dollar question. After all of this, when is it finally the right time? When are tools actually safe to deploy in your business? Here's the rule. It is deceptively simple, but I promise you, following it will save you an incredible amount of pain. You are ready for a tool only when your system is already stable, predictable, and effective without it. A tool should be there to automate and scale a process that already works manually, not to invent a process that doesn't exist yet. This, of course, begs the final critical question. What does a truly stable revenue system actually look like? In our next explainer, we're going to break down the components of that healthy system, so you'll know exactly when you're truly ready to scale.